So first I wanted to go into some of the history of nonviolent communication. As I had mentioned, it was created by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, who was a PhD psychologist. He graduated from the University of Madison, Wisconsin. I love that because that's where I was born and raised. A great, great place. But he chose to go into the field of psychology because when he was a little boy, he really noticed that there were some people who were just gracious givers. They found joy in contributing to others. And then there were other people who were violent for no apparent reason. He remembers seeing his father get beat up by the police because he came from a Jewish family. Jewish Rosenberg, it's a Jewish last name. Got beat up for that. He himself was bullied as a child for the very same reason. And so he looked at this contrast where he could, on one hand, see violence for no apparent reason, and on the other hand, see this just movement towards contributing, this joyful contribution to the well-being of others. And he really wanted to see, well, how do we support people to shift out of this paradigm of violence, domination, these life-negating ways of being? How do we shift from that into this place of natural desire to contribute, natural desire to be life-affirming, to be harmonious, to be compassionate, to be cooperative and co-creative? Right? How do we make that shift? And that's what really drove him to psychology. If I can understand the psychology of humans, then maybe I can help create that needed shift in our world. So after completing his PhD in psychology, he came to a painful realization that it didn't answer his question. He sometimes makes a joke of driving in a car, and he says, before I studied psychology, somebody would be driving in a way I didn't like, and I would say, you jerk, just really loud at the window, you jerk. And after psychology, then I would say, you psychopath, So, it's kind of making a joke that what psychology does is it gives much more sophisticated evaluations of humans. It puts them in a box of a particular label and then treats them for that label and, job done. That doesn't address the question that he had growing up. That doesn't, okay, so now I've labeled somebody with a psychoanalysis, whether it's psychopath or narcissist or passive aggressive or whatever it is, that doesn't actually support somebody to connect with the goodness inside of them and to be more inspired to be compassionate and generous. I mean, oftentimes, if you've been labeled, do you want to be in a more compassionate, caring, cooperative place? Or are you wanting to put up walls and say, hey, I don't want you anywhere near, right? If you've been labeled, are you more inclined towards cooperation, or are you more apt to want to fight in some way, whether that's through words or actions? So his PhD in psychology did not actually resolve the problem. And that's when he discovered the work of Carl Rogers. And discovering Carl Rogers was truly a breakthrough for him. Carl Rogers, one of the main pieces that Marshall Rosenberg talks about is how Carl Rogers had discovered that everything we do is driven by the desire to meet a precious need. Now, we could also call these needs longings, values, desires, wants. There's different words we could use, so I don't want you to get stuck on the word need. Certainly not, because in the English language, most often when we use the word need, it's with a judgment or a demand, oh, don't be so needy, right? That would be the judgment or the demand. I need you to wash the dishes, right? That would be in a demand. So we're not talking about that. The universal needs are a category that, again, motivates all of action. And so this is an example of the universal needs you can see on here, that these are needing you to wash the dishes is not on here. Needing chocolate, needing tea, needing a vacation, not on here. Right? We can see these main categories of meaning, connection, freedom, security, substance, autonomy, to matter, understanding. So there's 128 on this list, and you can download these from my website, www.lovesmartcards.com, or from the cnbc.org website. They're available in both those locations. No doubt they're on other websites as well. It's a core teaching that revolutionized Marshall Rosenberg's framework around solving this problem. So that was one of the principles that was introduced by Carl Rogers, and that went hand in hand with this idea of empathy. There's some beautiful videos of Carl Rogers and Marshall Rosenberg talking about these universal needs, longings, values, and desires, and talking about empathy in a way, again, when you study this work, it can absolutely transform all of your relationships. So I'm so excited to be sharing this with you. So that's a bit about the history, and we're going to take a pause there, and then we'll go to our next video.